Hey, welcome back. Good to see you, Matt.
Good to see you.
This is going to be a really tough show today for a lot of reasons. So you're going to want to share this, and this is going to cause us some heat.
It will.
In a lot of different ways. We are going to be interviewing.
She's sitting right next to us, by the way.
Right next to us. We're not going to put her on yet. But her name is Erin. And before Judge Matthew Barrett decided to disregard the rights of Tina Peters, deny her a defense, sentenced her to 9 years in prison, he's been terrorizing people in Mesa County. He was fired as an assistant district attorney for unethical behavior. He was fired. And this guy's been into some pretty deviant behavior. But before we get into this story, I want to talk quickly, Matt, about Chris Cuomo. Now, Chris Cuomo, and this will dovetail into it, and then we'll go right into our introduction, and then we'll get into the interview. Chris Cuomo put a tweet out on May 6th. And in that, I want to play it for you if we can. And I'm not going to play the whole thing. But let's start by putting it out there. Let's start by having him attack Tina Peters on his platform. You know that when President Trump came out and he stated, get Tina Peters out of jail. She is a political prisoner. She's a prisoner in Colorado. Chris Cuomo, now he was wrong about a lot of things. Well, let's go ahead and start out by playing
And
this.
by the way, before we play it, I want to make the connection for anyone who doesn't know. Matthew Barrett is the one who sentenced Tina Peters. He is the one who put a 70-year-old woman, she's about to turn 69 now, in prison for 9 years with no criminal history. And he has done the same thing or similar thing to the person who's sitting next to us now. And we are going to today finally bring light to what this sick monster has done to so many people, many of whom have never had the platform or the ability to even explain their story. So go ahead and play the Chris Cuomo clip.
Nation where right and left come to be reasonable. And that isn't just some tagline, okay? It's a requirement. It's what News Nation is built to do, because I don't think there's anything we need more. Our political parties, because we're in this binary battle to the bottom, right? All binary can be is zero sum. If it's you versus somebody else, how do you win? By making them lose. So we've just lost perspective on right and wrong in favor of seeking any kind of advantage between right and left. And that's the truth. And you have to realize it and fight against it. So my role is to usually call out the game that they play. But when it's about undermining confidence in our ability to hold free and fair elections, and our elected leaders wanting to duck that conversation, the job is to not just expose that, but extirpate it from the record of what is reality. Literally pull it out, show it to you, and throw it away. And that's what this BS about Tina Peters being a political prisoner is. BS. Now you're thinking, who's Tina Peters? Fair. She's Trump's latest ploy in an attack on law and order. She was the former county clerk for Mesa County, Colorado. You remember her. She became a prominent figure in the Stop the Steal movement. She was one of the people claiming that Dominion's voting machines were compromised after the 2020 election. Remember? The heart of her allegation was that there were false databases made that allowed for fake voting. She was dead wrong. And she broke the law to make her point. She was investigated, indicted, prosecuted, and found guilty. But in defiance of all the known facts.
Take it down. So I'll just start by saying this. Chris Cuomo, you can kiss my ass. You know about as much about a computer as you do the monitor in front of you. And the fact that he kept looking off to the side meant that somebody walked in and somebody paid Chris Cuomo to stand up there and lie. You're a liar, Chris. So the further you get into his 15-minute diatribe, the worse it gets. Number one, That's the first time that they've talked about, Matt, separate databases. First time that they've talked about it. And the reason why they're talking about it is because there were separate databases. And there were 3 reports that were made. And those 3 reports were done by experts. And remember his little smugness about the Dominion voting systems and that, oh, they stole the election. No, Dominion voting systems did steal elections. They did. And Eric Coomer was at the head of that stealing of elections. He owned the patent on the adjudication process. I predicted the outcome of the 2021 Senate runoff race almost exactly, which led me on January 6th being at the Secretary of State's office, meeting with Pompeo's counsel, walking through the modeling. They stole the election and then they gaslit the American people and they continue to do it. And this is what the radical left is. So here's what I wrote. I said, you were wrong about COVID. You were wrong about the vaccine. He had to come out and talk about both of these things. And you were wrong about the election being stolen. The machine companies and the conspiracy to steal the voice of the American people that has happened in 2020 across the nation at every level and has continued to happen in every election since. Someone is paying you to be blind and ignorant because you have proven yourself to be intelligent. My question is why? Why would you gaslight, fool, and otherwise distract from the mountains of evidence? Why are you so hell-bent on convincing the American people to run away from what is absolute slavery? As not having free and fair elections is certainly slavery. You use soup salad, the same narrative of disinformation, misinformation, and safe and most secure election in U.S. history, as you backstop and parrot the adjudication in the courts as your justification. Only the people recognize the massive corruption and evil in the courts and the capture of our society by ideological henchmen who ignore the interests of the people and betray basic logic and decency. Someone is paying you. Someone is pressing you to do their bidding. And the only other explanation is that you're a part of the very conspiracy to defraud and destroy all that is good about our nation, including the people in it. I suppose the devil did come with a smile and a straight face. So which one is it, Chris? Are you the devil or just a traitor to the people? And those are truly your only 2 plausible options. That's what I wrote. And then I also said this because it had to be said. Chris uses the art of debate to lie, lie, lie. He's a liar and his words betray the masses. Experts, the massive experts, he and others like him with zero understanding of facts or technology run away from. They are not institutionally honest. They are liars. He spoke of truth but knows nothing of it. He was wrong about COVID, wrong about the vaccines. He covered for his brother while tens of thousands died at the hands of diabolical individuals. They treated the people like slaves and used soup salad reasoning and ran away from reality while calling the people who question the chaos conspiracy theorists. He will be wrong about this too. Remember, the devil will come with a smile and a kiss while trying to convince you it did not exist. Chris is a liar, and he does it so well with a straight face. So Chris Cuomo, I will literally get on and debate you anytime you want. But today, we're not just going to talk about Tina Peters. We're going to talk about the people who have diabolically done things to lots of people, to hurt lots of people in the community. And this story we're going to tell about Erin Pressler when we come up next is just that story. All that today. Hit the like button and hit the share button. You're going to want to hear this on Untamed.
Take 2. Cut.
Take 2.
Cut.
I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people. Right, follow me with this.
But they've been using their power to obstruct and stop justice from taking place.
You want to pray us out?
I do.
We'll pray for Tina. And let's have conversations about what truth is.
Eyes to the community are what they are, but your reputation at this point is poor because of what you've done here and after. Your lies are well documented, and these convictions are serious. I'm convinced you would do it all over again if you could. You're as defiant as a defendant as this court has ever seen. You don't have those history of drug and alcohol abuse. There's no lifetime of trauma, not even close to the type of mitigating circumstances I would see from many folks who sit in that chair. No, to the contrary, Ms. Peters, you are a privileged person. You are as privileged as they come. And you use that privilege to obtain power, a following, and fame. And to be sure, there's no doubt in my mind that it's exactly what you wanted, and it defies all sense of common sense to believe when you suggested to me a few moments ago that you didn't want this attention. No, you crave it, ma'am. And there is no one in this courtroom who would consider that to be anything other than the absolute truth. You have no respect for the checks and balances of government. You have no respect for this court. You have no respect for law enforcement. And you do not have respect for your fellow colleagues when you were a clerk and recorder who weren't lockstep in your beliefs. Period. No, at the end of the day, you cared about the jets, the podcasts, and the people fawning over you. You abdicated your position as a servant to the Constitution, and you chose you over all else. Yes, you are a charlatan, and you cannot help but lie as easy it is for you to breathe. You betrayed your oath for no one other than you. And this is what makes Miss Peters such a danger.
What a disgusting human being to talk to her like that.
I want to tear his face off. But I'm going to tell you right now.
Allegedly.
No, I don't allegedly. If take off his robe and acts like a man, Matt, what he did was wrong.
I want to see him go in and use those words on someone his own size. I want to see him go
kind of a wussy, but.
and use, I want to see him talk like that to someone who's not in handcuffs, who's 69 years old. I want to see him try to have that language to Joe Altman. Why don't he go and say that to Joe Altman's face? I would love to see him try that, and he won't, because you're right, Joe. He's a coward. He's only willing to do it to a woman who's handcuffed, to a woman who he knows he can take advantage of when it comes to the court of law, and he can use his 5 minutes of fame right there, get on the media, 9 years in prison. It's awful, it's ridiculous, and it's one of the most disgusting examples of lawfare in American history.
He goes further. He goes further and tells her because she speaks that she's a danger to society. I mean, it gets much worse. You want to hear worse?
I do. Keep playing it.
Yeah.
To our community. It's the position she held that has provided her the pulpit from which she can preach these lies. The undermining of our democratic process. The undermining of the belief and confidence in our election systems. It's not about questioning it. No one says you can't question, you can't ask. It's completely different. And if you don't understand that distinction, then there's nothing I can say or do here today that will change your mind. So the damage that is caused and continue to be caused is just as bad, if not worse, than the physical violence that this court sees on an all too regular basis. And it's particularly damaging when those words come from someone who holds a position of influence like you. Every effort to undermine the integrity of our elections and public's trust in our institutions has been made by you. You've done it from that lectern the voting public provided you with. Everything you've done has been done to retain control, influence. The damage is immeasurable. And every time it gets refuted, every time it's shown to be false, just another tale is weaved. And prison is for those folks where we send people who are a danger to all of us. Whether it be by the pen or the sword or the word of the mouth. Prison is where folks go, where punishment is what we're focused on, because the crime committed is so significant that anything less would unduly mitigate the seriousness of the same. I mentioned before there are no mental health concerns. There's no good reason why you're here, Ms. Peters, other than these are all the active decisions that you made that cost our county significantly, but also more importantly, cost you greatly, Mr. Wood, all the members of the county
Wood.
who worked and trusted you when you asked them to do things that they did on your behalf. It's part of your lies. the expense, the toll is immeasurable. So putting you on probation when you have zero needs that would be met by probation is the very definition of unduly depreciating the significance of what it is that you've done here, the harm that you've caused our community and continue to cause. Community corrections is the same. So prison is the only place that duly meets the purposes of sentencing in this matter. And therefore the sentence and judgment of the court is as follows. As to counts 1 and 4, the judgment and sentence of the court is 3.5 years in the Department of Corrections. Those sentences will be concurrent to each other. As to count 2, the judgment and sentence of the court is 3.5 years consecutive to counts 1 and 4. As it relates to the misdemeanor charges, count 8 is 120 days in the Mesa County Detention Facility, concurrent to count 9 and 10, which will be 6 months in the Mesa County Detention Facility, consecutive to the prison sentence. The reason those sentences are consecutive is because those sentences are, as the prosecution stated, directly related to what it is that you did here in our community, the damage you caused this community, the breach of your oath to the electorate in Mesa County. Your sentence will be followed by 3 years of parole. You have 2 days of pre-sentence confinement credit. Anything I missed? Anything else we need to address?
Judge, I think you missed a sentencing on count 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Count 6 is criminal impersonation. That's also consecutive. That's 15 months to the Department of Corrections.
And the cost
So it's 8.5 years total, plus the 6 months for a total of 9 years.
Tina Peters is in jail right now. And we are joined by Erin Pressler, who's going to tell a story of what's gone on over the last 11 years. So, Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Erin, tell everyone a little bit, start with just who you are.
Well, I'm Erin Pressler. I'm from Silt, Colorado, and I have a husband and 2 wonderful children that we raised in the Valley. And I, until my run-in with Matthew Barrett, was a mom, best friend to people, and a wife. And I had a very normal life. I wasn't anything other than someone in our community, just
You've lived in that area for a long time.
all my life. Yeah.
When you first reached out to me, I said it's not the right time. And one of the things that I said to you is that I was looking into Matthew Barrett, the person, the judge.
Right.
And we're going to go through your story. We're going to start at the beginning. But you said a name, and I was like, I got to get off the phone.
Jim Pribble.
Jim Pribble.
Mm.
And I thought it was a setup, Matt. I thought it was a setup. Because Jim Pribble came up in my investigation of Matthew Barrett. And we have people that we have spent an enormous amount of time in that community who are afraid of Matthew Barrett, who are afraid of a group of people who have created a criminal enterprise inside of the Valley. And you fell victim to that. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to let you tell the story the way you told it to me on the phone. And by the way, I was very rude the first time I talked to Erin, because I'm listening to her and I'm writing stuff down. And then she says Pribble's name, and I was like, I went in the other room and I went, Jared, something's not right. How would she know that guy's name? Like, how would that come up in a county very far from Matthew Barrett? And then it all made sense. This deviant and this person, and by the way, the evidence is going to be dramatic, but I'm going to let Erin tell the story. So Erin, the floor is yours. and you have as much time as you need. So and we'll stop probably to ask questions.
We will.
We're going to listen.
Okay.
And I will also say, to add some credibility to Erin, we have been talking for the last 30 minutes, and she's been here at the studio for longer than that, talking to everyone here. One of the nicest, most respectable people who we've ever talked to. And so every single word she's saying should be listened to. And it's very important because there's a lot of people who Matthew Barrett will victimize in the future potentially. And what she's doing right now is not only brave, but it could help a lot of people. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. And it is an honor to be here to share my story. It's been a long time coming. And honestly, I never saw the day that this would happen. As someone who is not a political figure or a famous individual, I never thought my story would be told. I learned the hard way that in the system, once somebody's in the system, if you don't have the financial means, you're guilty. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. So my story begins almost like a once upon a time story. Once upon a time, I had a friend named Sarah Pagney who worked for a man named Jim Pribble, who had a business with another partner. They had a falling out because obviously this partner knew about Jim Pribble's shenanigans. They had a door hardware business. They split the business, and Jim needed to take files from the old business and put it into his new business and didn't know how. Sarah called me and asked me if I knew how to transfer files from one QuickBooks program to another, in which I did. I did my husband's books for him for his drywall company for years. I didn't immediately go help Jim. My husband had just gotten out of surgery, and he called me, and I said I could be there tomorrow. And he said, no, that's not good enough today. And I mean, I should have taken that from the hint to begin with, his attitude, but I did show up the next day. I was able to transfer the files. It took a couple days, not knowing now what I know now. That was an illegal thing to do. It's not something I got in trouble for, but those files didn't belong to him. They belonged to his old partner. So I transferred the files, and Jim offered to pay me, but I was on disability. And I told him I couldn't accept a payment. So instead, he said, okay, let me take your family to dinner, which seemed like a fair trade. So was shortly thereafter, we went to dinner, and I introduced my husband and my children to Jim. And Jim and Rod came up with a game plan at dinner. Jim had the door hardware company that was just starting up, and Rod had his drywall company. The only thing that Jim was short on with his company was credit. His partner had left and taken the credit with him that would allow him to open up with other door vendors and buy the supplies that he needed. My husband and I, we had excellent credit. We weren't frivolous. We didn't do a lot of spending. We were very low key, and we're happy with just having the little that we had. We were about family and kids' sports, and that's all we really cared about. So Rodney and I at the time had lived up in Newcastle, at the top of Newcastle, where back then there was no cell range. So the offer of Rodney working for Jim and being in Jim's office and being able to have his drywall business along with being an employee for Jim was a plus to us. The kids could, instead of after school every day going home and not being able to get down to sports like their friends or ride bikes in town, we now had this freedom that we were closer to town. Everything worked out great. Rodney and Jim started working together. Rod moved his office in there, and Rod's credit card, mind you, Rod's credit card, not my credit card, became the default credit card for all payments. Everything was charged on this credit card, and Jim paid it off monthly. Because the business was downtown now and not at the home, I would periodically go in the office to help Rod with his paperwork like I always used to do. While I was doing that, Mr. Pribble would ask me to help him do things. He had an anger issue. He would get so angry that he would cry when he was angry. He would throw things. He also had a very dirty mind. He would say dirty things. It didn't take long for Jim to start touching me. I told my husband about it. My husband was very aware and he didn't like it. And my husband confronted Jim on several occasions. But when we'd confront Jim, it was like Jekyll and Hyde. He would be sorry. He would apologize. He would make it better. We had such a good thing going. It was working for the kids. It was working for us. And something that I fully regret now is letting it happen, feeling like if I told, I would ruin a good thing. And who am I to say that somebody was attracted to me? Who was I to... It's just a shame thing. I don't know how to explain it any more than that. It's just it's a shame thing. And you know, everybody else is happy. So why can't you be happy? Just be happy. And so I tried to stay happy. But the comments were a lot. The
Right.
touching.
So I want to go back to the sexual harassment.
Mhm.
And I know this is, I mean, as a husband, I'm just, we're both husbands, both have kids. So this sexual harassment wasn't just a one-time thing.
No. If I wasn't being touched, I was being spoken to. Very inappropriately.
Is Jim Pribble, is he known for this? Is this something that he's has a reputation for?
He had a manager there. Her name was Sarah Pagney. And she had told me about it prior to ever calling me to help with the computers. She just dealt with it. It was just Jim. It's just Jim. I saw him do it to her. My husband saw him do it to her, but it was nothing compared to what he was doing to me.
So there was a point though that that it got really bad.
Pointed at it extremely bad. So 4 years went by. It started in 2009 through 2012. And I remember the day specifically. Rodney had gone to work and he had accidentally taken my son's eyeglass prescription with him. So my son and I had an appointment that morning to go see the eye doctor. And I soon realized I don't have the prescription. So I went to the office to grab the prescription. And I also had something else in my hand. It was a bag. I think it was printer ink that I was bringing to Rod. I walked into the store and Jim greeted me at the bottom of a spiral staircase that led up to Rod's office. He greeted me while he was on the phone. He put his hand up and whispered to me to stop. And he continued his phone call while making me stand there. He finally set the phone down. He slammed that hand down on the desk so hard that the monitor fell off the desk backwards. And he said, "It's going to happen. It's going to happen." My heart dropped. I took a couple steps backwards, and then there was a wall behind me. I dropped the bag on the floor. He lifted up his knee very hard between my legs and started sucking on my neck. He had this really dry skin on his fingers. Just he would chew his fingers, and just that feeling of those fingers on my neck is just something I will never get over. I wasn't raped. I have to say that'll come back full circle later. I wasn't raped, but it was definitely close enough. Too close for comfort, for sure. And somehow I got out of there. I left. But I did scream that I was calling the police when I left. I got all the way to Glenwood Springs. His office is between Glenwood Springs and Carbondale. I got all the way to Glenwood Springs, called my husband, told him what happened. Rod was just happy that I got away, happy that I left. Don't worry about it. You know, it's okay. And then I said, "Oh my gosh, Rod, I realized I just forgot the prescription." I hung up the phone and I went back to the office. And that's where hindsight's 2020. I went back to the office. I bypassed Jim while he was changing the locks on the door. He's a door hardware man. And I went up the staircase and I got the prescription. I brought it down the stairs. And as I was leaving, Jim grabbed my arm, twisted me backwards, and got me to the floor. Then he ripped the prescription in half out of my hands and told me that nothing in that office belonged to me anymore. It was his property. and to leave and to never come back. I got home, and unfortunately, I did not call the police. At the time, I was thinking, I don't need this in my life. My husband doesn't need this. My kids don't need this. This man means nothing to me. I'm going to walk away and just let him be him. Well, unfortunately, Jim called the police. Jim made a police report, and the first opening sentence was, I think Erin's been stealing from me, but you'll have to come back later so I can look and I'll let you know. But he said to the police officer, she comes in every day, and the first thing she does is ask me if her pants make her butt look too big. Mind you, I'm 106 pounds and I've never had a butt. And if you knew who my husband was compared to Jim Pribble, that's just not somebody I would ask that question. I don't care.
He looks like a leprechaun.
He looks like a leprechaun.
He does kind of look like a leprechaun.
He does
Let
look
me add a little
exactly
bit.
like a leprechaun. He looks like a Hollywood producer as well. He like a leprechaun Hollywood producer. He would fit right in Hollywood.
Can I have a leprechaun? Is there a leprechaun picture? I mean, we were talking about this before. Do we put Pribble and leprechaun next to each other? He looked like a leprechaun. There you go. Looks like a leprechaun. And I'm not trying to make light of this. I'm not, because there's so much more to this than what we just talked about.
Right.
But the fact that Matthew Barrett led me to Pribble prior to ever talking to you, Erin. And by the way, I get yesterday, because we were talking about this, I got another email from someone that talked about how Matthew Barrett, what he had done to her and her family. So I may share that today. I'm doing some digging into it right now. Gave me all of her information so you could check it all out. But it was good to, because I'm going to talk to everybody involved in this too.
And you notice a pattern as well, that he loves to go after women specifically. Matthew Barrett does not go after everyone, or maybe he does that too, but in almost all of these stories, in all of these cases, he is saying, I'm going to feel this power trip. I'm going to go after women specifically, and I'm going to abuse the law. I'm going to do it in a way that is harmful, is extremely overreaction when it comes to the actual crimes, quote unquote, that were committed versus the punishment that I'm going to levy. And he's done this over and over and over again. And finally, for the first time, people are starting to speak out, and there will be consequences for Matthew Barrett. They are coming.
So talk to me about the questioning. So they met with the police, and then talk to me about the questioning when after Pribble went to the police. Who did you first contact?
So after Jim Pribble went to the police, I don't think I was immediately contacted. There was several days in between. What had happened was I called the police and I asked for a civil standby so they could go get our computer out of Jim's office that had Rod, my husband's, business books in the computer and his business, everything off his desk. I had asked Megan Allstat for a civil standby, and for some reason, I was denied that standby.
Why were you denied a standby?
Tell me.
So it's gonna get much worse. But okay, so keep going.
Okay, so going back to the manager of Designer Door Hardware, Sarah Pagney, at the time, her husband was a Newcastle police officer.
Wait, what?
Her husband, Tony Pagney, was a Newcastle police officer.
Is that the same town or is that a different town?
Well, there's 3 towns altogether. You have, well, actually 4. So you got going towards, Aspen, you got Rifle, Silt, Glenwood Springs, and Carbondale.
But Pagney's...
Or excuse me, Newcastle.
And this is him? Is this Pagney?
That's Pagney.
Okay,
we'll get to that mugshot later.
This is a mugshot?
That's a mugshot.
So he was a police officer.
Yeah, he was a police officer. That mugshot is a mugshot from when he was chief of police in Newcastle. He got a promotion, and we'll get to that.
Okay, so just want you to know that that was a mugshot,
That was a mugshot
and he was a police officer
in Newcastle. Yeah. So it goes.
Everyone pay attention to what is being said right now. Super important, because his wife worked for Pribble.
Correct.
Okay, keep going.
So and let me clarify. It goes Rifle, Silt, Newcastle, Glenwood Springs, Carbondale, and all these towns are very close together, and they're all just kind of considered one community. So, I was denied the civil standby, and I had called Sarah and I'd said, "Hey, is there any way when you get off of work you could just bring Rod and I our stuff back?" And she said no, and the reason being is she was afraid of Jim as well. Which I knew, I already know, and he is scary. So I completely understood her fear.
Was she an attractive woman too? I mean, I'm asking the question because, and look, I'm married. This is not me making a pass at you, but you're an attractive woman.
Thank you.
So is
she's fair. She's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was me asking a question based on how Pribble hires people.
It is important. It's important.
It is
context.
important.
You have
I understand.
I'm not being inappropriate.
He was very attracted to her.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was times that my husband told me they'd be in the office and Jim would say, "Rod, come and look. She's bending over. You could see her underwear." And he would try to get my husband to go down and check out her underwear.
Wow.
So, like I said, I had asked her, and she was uncomfortable with doing so. So I understood. But then we had another plan. Sarah and her husband, Tony, had me over to the house. We were friends. We were friends prior to this. We did a lot of things together. Her husband, Tony, was a soldier of fortune. He had every single weapon in his house that anybody could think of. As a matter of fact, he handed me a live grenade when I was pregnant one time. He also maced me when I was pregnant one time. This guy, when you talk to him, he would tell you he was the law.
You have some weird friends. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Yeah. Well,
here's a grenade. Don't pull the pin.
Yeah. So he's the law, though. He would let you know he's the law. He's all about the law. Yeah. Anyway, so I went to their house and Tony said, "Here's the key. Go in the office. And as we, get your stuff." And it felt like a great plan. And then as I was still there, we decided, Tony had asked me, "When do you plan on going into the office?" Well, I was scared. I didn't know. So you know what? Go across the street to Mr. T's and make a copy of this key and then bring us this key back. That way, if Sarah wants to go to work tomorrow, she's not going to be locked out. Okay, good plan. So I did. I went and I made the key and I brought the key immediately back to Sarah. That night around 10 o'clock, I entered the office. Our stuff wasn't there. There was nothing there. But what was there on the computer was my family pictures scrolling across the monitor. So I did go into that computer and I deleted those family pictures. I was not going to leave that man with any pictures of me or my family.
Why would he have your family pictures on the computer to begin with?
Now, let me explain that part. That was Rod's desk, and Rod had his work computer and he had Jim's designer door hardware computer that he worked on. So Rod had put that on there, not Jim.
All right.
Okay, but I didn't want it left there.
A little creepy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did delete that and I left. The next day, Sarah called me with her husband on the phone, Tony. Erin, Jim went to the office and he noticed you had been in there. And she said, "I did not tell him. I gave you the key." And I said, "That's okay. This is all about me. It's all good." Well, then I got a lecture from Tony. "If anybody finds out I was involved in this, you're going to be sorry." I got the...
Did you record any of this?
No.
Yeah, no, trust me.
No.
I feel the same way about a certain phone call.
I mean,
with
and you got to realize this is kind of like flip phones back then in a sense. I didn't have cell range at my own house. My kids were teaching me how to use a cell phone. So, and so, yeah.
And in the moment, oftentimes you don't think about that.
No,
because it doesn't seem like, you don't think, "Oh, one day I'm going to need this." It's just.
No.
I do now.
Right. Yeah. Now
Yeah,
in hindsight.
Anytime that I'm in something, I'm like,
After watching your
record it.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, should we record it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yes, you should.
So, I got the threat from Tony and still, I'll be honest with you, half of me felt like this is my fault, and no, I'm not going to throw Tony under the bus, and no, I wouldn't get him his job lost because of this. So then I get the call from Megan Allstat, we need you to come in for questioning. All right. So
Okay, Megan Allstead.
Megan
we have a picture
Allstead.
of her. She's a detective.
this is Megan missed the body. We will get to that soon.
Okay.
And by the way, this story keeps getting crazier. So
Yeah.
we're just
This
getting
is just the
started.
beginning.
Just remember faces, take numbers and names, because
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
okay. So I go down in for questioning with Megan, and she asked me if I had entered, and I said no. She had
So
asked
you didn't
me.
tell the truth.
I did not tell the truth for the first 5 minutes. Then she says, I've got this key here and I've got this receipt. And okay, yeah, I did. And it wasn't that I was scared, number one. But the
Wait a minute.
biggest,
So if you had a key, hold on a second, time out. So if you had a key and she knew she had a receipt for a key, then she knew someone gave you the key.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not
Sure
breaking
did.
and entering then.
Well,
This
and,
person
and,
worked
and
for
if you research it, the amount of cases that Megan and Tony did together, they were good friends. Very good friends. And so I did not want to bring up Tony's name, and I didn't. And that's funny you mentioned that, because she didn't ask me where I got the first key from. She didn't ask me that.
and it never came out.
No. Well, no, yes, it does. It comes out in trial, but in trial it comes out, Sarah says, well, she came to the house, but she took the key out of my car. But she first testified when the police interviewed her that she had no clue about the key. She didn't know. So she changed her story actually 3 times. Which
Okay.
is fine. So I come clean and I tell her, yes, I had the key. Yes, I did it. And I don't know how much longer it was after that, but she called me and said, because you have kids, I'm not going to come to your house and arrest you, but I'll give you a summons. And a few weeks later,
So the summons was for breaking and entering.
Well, yeah, I guess, because they forgot to arrest me.
So there wasn't an arrest for breaking and entering.
She gives me a summons to appear. That's all it is a paper summons to appear. I had hired Tom Silverman, an attorney out of Glenwood Springs, to represent me. Lightning fast, I had a civil suit against me. I mean, the civil suit came before anything. It was just, Jim knew what he was doing. So I think I went to court 2 or 3 times, and Judge Denise Lynch, every time court was over, she'd say, your bond remains the same. And I remember standing there thinking, okay, what the hell is that? I didn't know what that meant. Finally, maybe the 4th court date, Jim Pribble stands up and he says, Your Honor, she's never been arrested. Oh. So that's when I got arrested. And that's when I had the affidavit. I think you can see on there my arrest. And that was for forgery.
For forgery.
For forgery.
And forgery specifically of
Where is that?
Forgery specifically of checks. Jim decided, come back later. I think she's been stealing from me. And then when they came back, she's like, yeah, all those checks that I've been writing to Rod's credit card for 4 years, I just now found out Erin was writing those and Erin was signing those. And I knew nothing about them until just now, until she walked out on me.
Okay. So then Silverman was your attorney.
So Silverman was my attorney. And Tom was really good about just putting things off, just charging me, and then getting extensions, like all these wasted court dates. But one thing that Tom was really good about was the fact that he let me know that the DA-elect at that time, that the DA, the lady that was running for DA at that time, when this first happened, it was Martin Beeson. He was at term. And so Sherry Colea wanted to be our new DA. Tom Silverman was her campaign manager. So I would go see Tom and I would, there we go. There's the affidavit. It's a forgery. That's all they have on me. This changes drastically by the end.
It's 2012.
Correct.
And this is a bond for
This is my bond,
forgery.
$7,500. I was bonded out of jail. I got arrested that day in court. And my father and my husband came and bailed me out.
Okay.
Okay.
This is in Garfield County.
This is in Garfield County. Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. So where was I here? So Tom had a great way of just putting off court dates but he was Sherry Colea's campaign manager. She was running for DA. Sherry at the time had embezzlement charges of her own.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. So I missed this on the last one. So she had embezzlement charges with Preble?
No, she was living or working. I don't know, quite sure if it was living and working or one or the other. Town of Marble.
So in the town, she stole money from the town.
Well, she said her secretary did it. She was accused of it, and her secretary, but her secretary was just found dead all of a sudden. And Sherry's case just got kind of wiped off the scale. So,
So what are we putting that up for? We're not there yet.
that's the incorrect one. We need Sherry Colea's.
Okay,
Yeah, that one.
hold on a second. Hold on a second. Time out. The secretary for Sherry,
Correct.
and Sherry was,
Running for DA.
and she had fraud charges against her,
She did. Correct.
and her assistant then showed up dead.
Correct.
How old was the assistant?
I never met her. I could not answer that.
Do they know what happened to her? Was that ever
Her
released?
hotel room. Dead in her hotel room.
Did they
No.
claim it was drugs? Do you know that?
Let's
we'll
see what we've got
Okay.
here.
Marble drops lawsuit against DA Kalea. Town of Marble, with hundreds of thousands of dollars in money laundering scheme by a former clerk, has dropped its related lawsuit against District Attorney Sherry Kalea. As she said Thursday, the former clerk, Karen Mulhall, worked for the town for about 18 years, said Marble trustee Vince Savage. Mulhall also worked as a bookkeeper in Kalea's private law practice between 2007 and 2012, with Kalea working as Marble's attorney from 2002 to 12. Later in 12, Kalea was elected district attorney in the 9th District Judicial District. Mulhall was found dead in a Denver hotel of apparent suicide in 2012, used Kalea's law firm to help steal almost $330,000. Mulhall would write checks from the town to Kalea's law office for legal services performed for the town. Kalea said, but Mulhall would write the amount for more than the town owed and then write a check out of the law firm's account to herself for the overage. She had signing authority on my account, who worked for Marble on an as-needed basis. It was for smaller amounts.
So we're the lucky recipients of getting Sherry Colea in our county. And as she was running for DA, it's quoted in the newspaper and at some of her venues, hey guys, if you elect me, I promise you I'm going to be tough on white collar crime. She didn't care about child molesters. She didn't care about drug charges. She was coming to Garfield County to be tough on white collar crime. There was a newspaper article that said Sherry Colea has an axe to grind.
Let me see her picture,
No,
mugshot.
she's beautiful.
Oh no.
All 3 feet of her.
So she's a leprechaun's leprechaun.
She is. But I think she was Tom Silverman, who's over like 7 feet tall. I believe that. I think that she was his hot item, though.
You know who she looks like? Susan Boyle from American Idol. Remember that? That's wow.
Susan
Okay.
Boyle looks way better than that.
Yeah, Susan Boyle was a model compared to this.
Okay,
This freak
let's. Sorry, I want to get right back on this. Tom Silverman, he cost you a bunch of money.
So Tom is literally, I'd go to the office to talk about my case, but instead he'd be like, hey, here's Sherry Colea's campaign signs. I need them passed out. I need them put in lawns.
So he would ask you to do that for her.
Yes, and I did. And he would say, she needs your case. She needs your case really bad. Well, stupid me thought, oh, okay, yeah, I can help you, Tom. You're helping me. But she needed my case because I was her axe to grind. I was her proof that she was tough on white collar crime, that she was not a criminal.
Yeah,
But
so I
this
wanna-
is the face.
Yes, I
of a
mean,
criminal.
I want to get further because then he quits, right?
Who quits? Yes.
Silverman quits.
Yeah, Tom Silverman finally quits. And when Tom quits, he quits right. I had hired him as a civil attorney and a criminal attorney.
Okay.
When he quits, he leaves me right in front of a civil deposition to attend on my own.
And you attend that on your own, but it cost you about 10 grand up to that point. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is accurate.
And
Okay.
that's a lot of money, obviously.
That is a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of, absolutely. Yeah, still is. I attend this civil deposition after I had a grapefruit-sized tumor removed from my stomach and wasn't supposed to be even out of bed. But Here we go. And this civil deposition is in front of 2 attorneys and a cameraman on their territory. And mind you, at this time, I have a criminal trial coming up
For forgery.
for forgery.
But forgery.
But this trial had grown, and I'll get to that in a second. The charges had grown. In the civil deposition, they're putting checks in front of me left and right. Did you sign this? Did you sign this? Do you recognize this? What is this? And I was told, and I'm not an attorney, so I was doing this on my own, to take the 5th. To not incriminate myself in a different trial, I was allowed, given the circumstances, to take the 5th. So I took the 5th on almost every question that they asked.
Yeah, you should never do that.
Well, yeah, I learned that because without a court trial, without ever meeting the judge, I got summary judgment against me. I lost because I did that.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
On the civil side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I never met the judge until I had to go to court shortly thereafter to give them my account number so they could garnish every checking account we had. And still, that date was very close to the deposition date. I got to that court date, and
Okay, didn't Silverman tell you that you should claim that you were raped?
Yes, we can go back to that. I apologize. I skipped on that. Real quick here, I got to that first court date that I only met the judge at one time and fainted because I wasn't supposed to be there. They don't care. They just don't care about your well-being. Anyway, yes, when I met with Tom Silverman, I went in his office one day and he literally kicked his legs up on his desk and leaned back in his chair and said to me, "You need to remember a rape."
Silverman
I said,
said that.
"Tom, I was not raped. I don't remember a rape. I was not raped." And Tom looked at me again and said, "No, Erin, you need to remember a rape." And then he quoted how good it would look in the headlines. I was not raped.
For fuck's sake.
And that's terrible advice too, because that's something that could be looked into. And if they found out, so I mean, not only is he a piece of shit for saying that and trying to get you to lie about it, but on top of that, he was basically being a bad lawyer too. So on both accounts, like this guy was trying to railroad in the wrong direction and was not helping at all. He was hurting.
When he said, "If I don't remember a rape," the other thing was, I don't have a civil case. And so I literally, emotionally and physically, mentally gave up on the civil fight because this man that's supposed to be representing me told me I had nothing.
All right. Let's get back to I don't want to get too in the weeds with some of the minutia, but then you hired or asked to have a handwriting analysis done.
Correct. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We'll start there.
So after yeah.
That's in 2014.
Correct.
Almost 2 years later.
Yeah. So after fighting with the court to get them to actually let me have a handwriting analysis because Tom Silverman wouldn't do it, the court wouldn't do it. After fighting with the court and getting them to allow me to have a handwriting analysis, Denise Lynch instructs me to get a hold of Scott Turner, a DA at the time, to set this handwriting analysis up. After court, I call Scott Turner and I say, "Hi, Scott, this is Erin. I'm calling you to set up this handwriting analysis." And he says to me, "F off."
Okay, so just F off. I mean, no.
And he says, "I don't care if you're innocent or guilty. I don't care. You're going to prison."
All right, so Scott Turner is another lawyer, or is
Scott Turner was a DA at the time. He's now an attorney general. I think that
he's an AG. He's a deputy attorney general.
A deputy attorney general, correct?
Okay, all right.
So this happened a couple times. I had to go back to court. I had to stand in front of Denise Lynch with Scott Turner right behind me, just giving me the eye, like, "Don't you dare tell on me." And I had to. And Denise said, "Did you get it done?" I tried, Denise. We're still working on it. And I had to go back and finally I had to go above Scott and I think the man's name was Dittmeyer. I have a lot of names here. I believe it was Mr. Dittmeyer. I went through him and finally got to do the handwriting analysis. Megan Allstat called me into her office And we did handwriting exemplars where you sit there and do so many with your right hand, so many with your left hand. But the entire time that I was doing these, she was screaming at me, "You're not writing like Jim. This doesn't look like Jim's handwriting."
Okay, hold on a second. So this document, this document is from, this is from who to who? This is
Let
from,
me explain this to you.
okay.
So as soon as I finished that handwriting exemplar,
So Scott Turner, and then, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I really do have to explain that part. So as soon as I finished that, Jim Pribble doesn't do his for like 6 weeks later, but he gets to do it at home. She visits his house where they were doing whatever, and she's not telling him, try to write like this, try to write like that. I mean, she really scolded me. And I eventually had said to her during this, do you want to just give me his signature so I can trace it? Because she was saying, you're not doing this good enough, try harder. So I get this handwriting analysis done, and it is sent off to the FBI, but it is taking forever. It is not coming back. It's not coming back. So finally I said, you know what? I'm going to get an independent analysis done. So I made this phone call to this man in Grand Junction. He was at the time
Joseph Snyder.
Yeah, he was a professor at Mesa University. I called Joseph Snyder. He says, okay, I'll call the sheriff's department and get your stuff. These are his findings.
So he had 43 exemplars bearing the writing of Jim Pribble, 44 exemplars bearing the known writings of Sarah Pagney, 42 exemplars and copies of 6 miscellaneous documents bearing known writings of Erin Pressler, and 1 additional exemplar of writing of Erin Pressler with the name of James Pribble.
Correct.
Okay. Now, here's what the conclusion was. Now, you were going to trial for not only forgery at this point, or is this just forgery still?
At this point, I'm going to trial for forgery. I'm going to trial.
Because they added charges.
Yeah. They added, do you want the added charges?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody wants to hear the added charges. Added charges.
Forgery for stealing a computer when I entered the building, for stealing bookkeeping books when I entered the building, for stealing a QuickBooks CD when I entered the building.
Did you take any of that stuff?
No. And we'll get to that. There's proof of that as well. So one thing that we kind of do have to back up on.
By the way, everyone hasn't even heard the part about Matthew Barrett yet.
Oh, we'll get there.
Right?
We'll get there.
Which is probably the scariest part about all of it.
It is. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So, and I don't recall if I said this before, but earlier in this story, Jim Pribble knew that I couldn't work for him. He'd asked me to help him do stuff in the office, but he knew I was on disability. That was something I didn't hide from him. That's something I told from him from the beginning. But when these investigators came in and talked to Jim and he said I'd be stealing, he told the investigators that I was an employee, not my husband. My husband was the employee of Jim's. We've been over that. We have the W-2s. We have the workman's comp policy. He was a very...
So we already established, I just want to be really careful. We've already established that Pribble is not a good guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. We already established that there's a lot of other things that I'm not going to bring you into that we're going to be talking about Pribble and Matthew Barrett. So
okay.
we're talking about that later.
Okay.
We're past that. I think everybody understands it. I don't want to watch, you see, it's called watching paint dry. If people watch paint dry, they'll just become, because
right.
you have people that are already saying, I need a whiteboard for this. So let's get to the part where you had a handwriting analysis, and then the analysis, you presented that to the court.
Well, yes and no.
You didn't present it to the court.
No. This handwriting analysis that we just viewed, I was at a civil deposition, and Chad Barsness, the attorney for Jim Pribble, said, do you have anything in your possession that you haven't shared with me that helps your case for your defense? And let me tell you, if you have something in your possession and you haven't given it to me, you will get your house searched. So you better give it to me now.
In a civil deposition?
In a civil deposition.
Was that on recording too?
This is recorded. This is all on document. Yeah.
Wait, he said that inside of it, it was recorded in the deposition.
Yes.
You have that part of the deposition. I need that.
I do. I will
But
get
keep
that
going.
to you.
Sorry.
So I had it in my car. But what I had in my car was the top page that you just saw. I mean, mind you, when you get these reports, they're several pages long with the credentials and the notary. You're just seeing the basically the results page. So I bring him the results page. Maybe a week later, I have court in criminal. And all of a sudden, Judge Lynch brings up this report that I've never given her.
So how did Judge Lynch get it?
Sharing, I guess, sharing across the courts, which is illegal.
Now, forget about the illegal part.
Chad Barnes-Ness gave it to.
So Chad Barnes was Prebol's attorney?
Yes.
And Chad Barnes, by the way, another name that came up, pretty interesting name. So he shared this with Judge Lynch?
He shared it with the DA, and the DA at the time was Scott Turner. But mind you, Matthew Barrett worked there. Okay, so his name will come up.
Matthew Barrett worked where?
At the DA's office.
Okay, so Matthew was a deputy or assistant
DA.
DA.
Yes.
Deputy DA.
Deputy DA.
DDA.
And at this point, Sherry Colea is the DA. She's been hired. So
with an assistant that was found dead in Denver from suicide.
Correct. So this handwriting analysis comes up, and I go to court, and they just let me know when I show up in court, hey, we have this, but it's not notarized. You can't use it. Don't ever try to use it. And we're going to talk about the setting for the trial. Everything you can talk about, everything you cannot talk about. And this handwriting analysis, I was barred from bringing it up. They said, if you bring this up, or if you bring up how Jim Pribble has touched you and the things that he said inappropriate to you, Denise Lynch's words, I don't care what a sexual monster he is. I don't want to hear about it, and it has nothing to do with anything. You will not ruin his character by talking about this handwriting analysis and or sexual harassment.
But the handwriting analysis was what you were there for, was forgery.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, this is all the way, I'm going to skip through a little bit of this because I want people to understand that this is just the basis of it. So you had a trial in 2014.
Correct.
Okay.
That trial was considered a mistrial.
Okay.
It was a mistrial because one of the jurors at the very end, the very last day, called in and said, I can't be here anymore because Jim scares me. He's a child molester.
Okay, so here's what I didn't know anything about this. So someone on the jury, this is also in court records.
This is on record.
Court records. Like we're in a small town on the Western Slope. And this person who sat on the jury is uncomfortable with Pribble because he is a child molester.
Correct.
Which causes a mistrial.
Instead of Denise Lynch saying it's your sworn duty to stay, she's like, oh, okay, you're not comfortable. You can leave. This was on the 7th day of the trial, after everybody's time was wasted. It was actually
But the person said that Pribble is a child molester.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
She can't be in the same room as him anymore.
And the trial notes also show that Pribble claimed that you stole a bunch of stuff.
Correct.
Okay. Including Rodney's computer that he owned.
No, not Rodney's computer. This would have been Jim's computer. There was Jim's computer over here and there was Rodney's over here.
Got it.
Yeah. So going backwards just a tiny bit, because I have to, I had a friend named Paul Cloud who does professional photos for the Denver Broncos. He at one point had said, you know what? I'm going to prove that you didn't steal this stuff. And this was very early in the game, like right after the arrest. He went into Jim's office with his camera. Actually, I think it was just his phone. And he said, Jim, I want to look at your hardware. Is it okay if I go upstairs? And Jim said, absolutely. Paul went up there and he recorded the books that I was accused of stealing. He recorded the computer I was accused of stealing. The only thing he didn't record was the QuickBooks CD, which I did get a felony for, that CD, by the way, which is junk.
For a CD.
The CD's junk. Once you own the license, you don't need that CD. But I got a felony for that.
And an old used computer. I mean, what would you
that you
even
never
want
took
that for?
That
Right,
I never
that you
took.
never took.
That
Like,
I never
that's-
took. Yeah.
And that wouldn't even make sense for you to take. So
Yeah.
anyone who's claiming you did or trying to put
Yeah.
charges against you for that is obviously full
Right.
of crap.
So another friend of mine, her name is Tara. She says, you know what? Let's do this. They're saying that Jim accused me of deleting his QuickBooks when I went into that office. You deleted my QuickBooks. He told the police, I no longer have a business. I'm out of business. I can't do anything because I don't even have QuickBooks. She has just left me high and dry. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. So
Okay.
Tara,
Was there any sort of connection between, I mean, you have forensics, right, on the book, so you'd be able to tell that, hey, this money went towards this and that this was bought here.
forensics? What's that?
Okay.
What's that? We'll get, yeah. Tara, I have to finish this for you, though. So Tara calls in and she speaks to Sarah Pagney and says, hey, can you look up my name and tell me what I bought last year? This is right at the beginning when he's telling the police he no longer has QuickBooks. Sarah gives her order. She finds her order in the computer.
How is that possible? Well, you can't.
That is not possible. That is not possible. So in my civil deposition, when I told Chad Barsness, hey, this is what Tara's done. This, next thing I know, when Matthew Barrett gets on my case finally, and I'll tell you why he got on my case, he endorses Tara as a witness. He takes her as a witness. And when we get to that trial, I'll explain to you what he did with her.
All right, fast forward. You went 2014, you had a trial, mistrial, because Preble is a
child molester.
Child molester.
And then they wait till 2016.
Do we ever find out who that person was on the jury?
I do know who she is, yes.
All right, so I need to have a conversation with her. So I'm going to do that next because I want to know the why, who, what, and that, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
Guys, listen, I'm going to break this wide open. So then, Erin, you feel like you're screwed. Like you have this handwriting analysis. Put that back up again. Handwriting analysis shows that you did not sign any of these checks.
Correct.
That you didn't sign them, and they match. It says it does match with Jim Preble.
Correct.
Who said you don't have any sort of books. So
correct.
Which then makes it so that he can't even figure out what the checks was written for.
Right. Correct.
Got it. Okay. So let's go. You have a new public defender. Now you have a public defender.
Okay. So I've got a new public defender, and to speed up the story, there was two DAs. There was Scott Turner and there was Jason. I don't know how to say his name. Slothauser. I just call him Slobber. Jason's.
So you got a leprechaun and a slobberer.
And slobber. Okay. So at the beginning of the second of the mistrial, Slobber introduces me to the jury as Garfield County's newest Al Capone.
Who does that?
Jason Slothauser.
Okay, slobber. Okay, got it.
Yeah. That was that mistrial. So, okay, so then let's see, where do we go from here? Finally, the handwriting analysis from the FBI comes in. It's inconclusive.
What do you mean it's inconclusive?
Well, they couldn't read it. And Megan Allstat never got real copies of the checks. Now, mind you guys, this is back in 2012. We used to get our checks mailed to us. Remember the bank used to keep them? And then you might be too young for that.
I might be.
Yeah, the bank used to keep them.
He was in like third grade.
and then they would shred them.
Just
okay?
kidding, not third. Fifth.
Yeah, like you had drawers full of canceled checks, They would keep them and then for a while they'd shred them. She never went to the bank and got real copies of anything, ever.
Okay,
so
why?
You tell me. She faxes in the exemplars to the FBI. She faxed them in.
All right, so she's a dirtbag. Okay, let's keep going. You have a public defender, Molly Owens. She said that argues that you didn't mean to.
Didn't mean to. She just stood there at trial and said she didn't mean to. Well, you had finally. So since Jason Slothauser and Scott Turner were both removed from my case for interviewing witnesses without a third party.
Who was removed?
Scott Turner and Jason Slothauser, whatever. Okay. They were all removed from my case for interviewing witnesses without a third party. Along comes Matthew Barrett, and he does the same thing. But at this point, and I believe it made the newspaper, Judge Lynch is pissed. I'm not removing him. I'm not taking him off your case. I'm not removing another DA from your case. So I'm going to give you a choice, Erin, which she gave Molly. She said, now you need to give this court more time to get up to speed because your trial's literally in a week. So I'll tell you what, if you give us more time, which I think turned out to be a year at this point, to get us up to speed, I'll allow you to have your witnesses. Otherwise, we'll go to trial here shortly and you won't have witnesses. That was a choice I got. I didn't respond. I wanted to respond, but Molly stood up and said, oh, we'll give you guys time. So then Matthew Barrett took over my case, and that is when the show started. Matthew Barrett gets involved, and he pays me a visit to my front door twice. The first time he was alone, he knocked on the door. I answered the door. He asked for Rod. I told him Rod wasn't home. He started laughing like cocky, the cocky laugh, and said, yeah, you let him know that I want to talk to him, and I don't think it's wise for him to show his face. And I got a little lecture about Rod could have his children taken away if he wanted to show up because he could put Rod in jail immediately.
Okay, so hold on a second. Did you call the police at that point? Did you?
No. I was the headlines of the Glenwood Post. I think, I forget that John Colson.
But he went to your house. So you did have it recorded that he went to your house.
Yes.
That was in the trial.
Yes.
That Matthew Barrett showed up at your house.
Yeah, he brought it up. He showed up a second time. The second time he had someone with him.
Matthew Barrett came to your home by himself looking for your husband.
Correct.
And I was going to have your husband come in here, and he can't. He can't be in here. He's here now.
It's too hard.
Okay.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome is real.
I agree. So then the secretary, let me just, so what's Cloud's video? What's that? What's this video?
Paul Cloud's video is in the office, and it's showing everything that I was accused of stealing.
That was your friend that went in there and took a picture.
Correct.
And you had a video that says that all this stuff is there.
Correct. You've got at this point, you got a video and you got a handwriting analysis.
But then, so you have a handwriting analysis that's there that says that it's not you. They struck that. That ended up not being in the court.
Correct.
Nobody's allowed to see
either
that.
court. Yeah.
Okay. The video showed that now Barrett says that Cloud's video shows that you had criminal behavior, right?
Correct.
But has it struck? It won't let anybody see it.
Right.
So the video that shows that the information inside of the office, the computer, the books, all that stuff, he says, you can't show that shows that you're innocent.
Oh, no, it got shown. We definitely played this during the second trial. But here's what he did. Paul Cloud and Tara both. He got each one of them on the stand. First, he gets Tara on the stand and he says, "Did you call Designer Door Hardware and say your name and they looked up your order?" "Yes, I did." "Did Erin tell you to do that?" "No, I did it on my own." Why would somebody just sit there one day and decide to do something like that on their own? Erin has been told to leave Jim Pribble alone. Erin has been told to stay away from that store. So instead of Erin doing it personally, she paid you or she told you to do this. You did it. You did this because she told you. So he looks at the jury and he's like, again, she violated the rules. And she is purposely, and I forget the word that he used, but basically purposely stalking Jim Pribble.
Matt, do you see this though? The victim becomes the enemy.
Yeah.
And the enemy becomes the victim. What did they do to Tina?
The same exact thing.
Same thing.
So
identical.
Tara.
Only Barrett is directly related to Pribble. And Pribble was called a child molester, which is why this is important, by a juror that in 2014 said, "I can't be on this case. That guy's a monster."
And we have firsthand account here of him being a monster. So it's not just that a juror said that. It's not just that there's a record of it. It's not just that she said it, but it's also that he's tied to Matthew Barrett. And then you start to realize where this is going.
Okay. So what happened in that trial?
Okay, so he gets Tara completely flustered and she starts crying. There's nothing hostile about her. There's nothing mean about her. She's crying because he's being so cruel to her.
And the court, your attorney didn't interject?
No.
And the court didn't interject?
And Matthew Barrett says, "Your Honor, she's hostile. We need to remove her." She got removed from the bench for being a hostile witness. That way...
Did your attorney get to cross
I don't believe so. I don't believe so, to my knowledge. I can't remember, but I don't believe so. And I think that,
system is just shit.
Yeah. And so none of her statements held any credibility because I used her to stalk Jim Pribble. So then they get Paul Cloud and they show the video and they do the same thing to Paul. "Hey, Paul, you know what? Wait. Did she ask you to do this?" "No. I'm a photographer. She told me the story and I offered to do it." And they asked him a whole plethora of questions that really they made no sense. But what they were doing were they were demeaning to Paul. They were demeaning to his character.
Well, that doesn't, I mean, the court should have said yes or no. Was the stuff there or was it not there?
Yeah. And they
your attorney should have been asking the same questions.
So later they get another gal on the stand and she was a witness for Jim. I guess she was working for Jim at the time. And they ask her.
What happened to Pagney? Why didn't Pagney testify, or did she?
Pagney did testify.
Okay.
And let's talk about the second Pagney. Let's talk about the police officer Pagney. By the way, every single court date that I went to, he showed up in police uniform. No matter if it was a status conference, no matter if it was a setting, he was there to watch me.
Hold on a second. I want to stick to the facts. Okay?
All right.
Super important. She showed up, testified.
She did.
Did she testify on the key?
She testified on the key that
You took it from her car.
I took it from her car.
Okay.
And her husband were home.
All right. So her and her husband are home. He's a police officer. He tells you not to do something. You go get a key made, cross the street from them. I assume across the street means
Across
close.
the river. Uh-huh.
Okay, across the river.
Mm.
You go in there. You don't take anything. You delete photos.
Correct.
Then you leave. You get all the charges started with forgery. You have a handwriting analysis that shows that they are Pribble's writing.
Correct.
But he said he can't get access to the books, so he can't prove. So none of that evidence was presented.
None.
And you're found guilty.
Yes.
Okay. Why didn't your husband testify?
Because we decided it was more important to keep the kids.
Because Barrett says that if he testifies,
Mm-hmm.
I
We're
mean,
going to lose our children.
okay.
We're going to lose our children.
So if he testifies, so how did that go? If he testifies, he'll come in and take your kids.
Correct.
Now, Matt, I want to remind you of something. Tina was married for over 30 years. The DA interfered with their marriage, went to the home that Tina's husband was at, and commenced the divorce proceedings against Tina and interfered with their marriage as well to get them divorced, and then went after her for her home. That happened.
It's disgusting. And it's not just that. These people who are committing these atrocities of the law are criminals themselves. And we have overwhelming evidence to support that in almost every single case. These are people who are trying to cover up their own crimes. When it comes to the assistant who lost her life, obviously the first question you ask is, was she the patsy? And that's why she was taken out, because then now we're not going to have the real criminal who is charged. And once again, we're seeing this case where Matthew Barrett clearly is trying to cover things up, where he's clearly trying to stop the truth from coming out. And that's why he has to go to your husband and threaten him to not testify. That's why you can't have the evidence that needs to be included, because if it is, then you're not guilty. And we know that. And so it's so clear what's happening here, and what happened in your case and Tina's case are the same exact thing in different ways and to different magnitudes. But at this point, Matthew Barrett shouldn't be a judge anymore. The fact that he's still sitting in a robe right now.
He wasn't a judge at the time.
His DA.
He was a assistant district attorney, and it gets worse.
Yep.
Because he got fired. Matthew Barrett got fired as an assistant district attorney. And I know we're not there yet. But you were, oh man. So I've already heard this twice. This happened in 2016 after you were charged and after you went to jail.
Correct.
So right after this, you were in prison already. What were you sentenced to? Let's start there.
7 years.
7 years in prison.
Correct.
So you had something that shows that you were not guilty of forgery. You were found guilty of forgery.
Correct.
You were not allowed to present the evidence of the forged.
Let's back up. Once they had my handwriting analysis, the independent one, they called me in one day and said, we're going to do you a favor, and we're going to take this forgery charge and we're going to turn it into theft. So in civil, I had a summary judgment for forgery, and in criminal, they turned it to theft. And in both courts, I was charged with the same amounts.
Okay.
And how much of the 7 years did you serve? I think that's an important part of it.
How does that go? I should know this by now. Living in the prison system, it is 4 and a 3. So they did it concurrent. Is that what it's called? So I did. So I had a 4.
Okay.
And then I did 2.5 years, a little over 2.5.
Okay. Keep going on this.
Are you
'cause-
ready for
yeah,
this?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
This is the part where it gets worse
it
because
does.
now
It does. And so
you had to serve them concurrently.
I
or
did.
was it consecutively?
Consecutively? Is that how when it's
Yeah.
together? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm found guilty. Everybody, I had other witnesses. There was another gal that had the same thing happen to her, but Denise Lynch has heard enough and she's kicked everybody off of mine. Nobody can testify anymore. She's heard enough. So I'm found guilty.
Wait, nobody can testify. She actually did that.
She denied my endorsed witnesses.
She denied your endorsed
She had
witnesses.
denied my endorsed witnesses after Tara and Paul.
How many other witnesses did you have?
I think 3 or 4.
And none of them were allowed to testify.
No, and they flew in from out of state twice because there was 2 and no.
Okay.
She said because she didn't want to hear what a sexual monster Jim was.
So you had people that were going to testify that Jim Pribble was a monster,
Correct.
that had intimate knowledge of that monster.
Correct.
And you weren't allowed to. So your entire relationship devolved because he tried to rape you inside the
Correct.
deal, which I assume then you told your husband,
Oh, absolutely.
who then called him, which is why when you went back, I'm trying to put this together.
You're right.
When you went back, he's like, you're never coming back here because your husband at that point had enough and told him you've had enough.
Correct.
And so at that point, he kicked you out.
Yes.
Okay.
got it. And mind you, going in with the key, I'm also
I don't care about the key part.
Yeah,
Don't care
but
about
I do want to say I thought it was kind of smart as well because I didn't want Rodney and Jim in the same room ever again. I didn't, trying to. I don't think that would have turned out good.
Maybe it would have actually.
Right? Yeah. So okay. So now we're at sentencing, and it was 2-3 months later. I forget. Well, it was in March. Sentencing comes up in March.
March of 16.
March of 2016.
Okay.
I went to prison on our wedding anniversary.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. We go to sentencing, and it's brought up that my PSI said that they were recommending 6 months in the halfway house, that I wasn't somebody that would do well in prison. It would not benefit me. It's just, I think the reason for the PSI is to help people become better people, not send them somewhere that's going to make them worse. I mean, that's the way it should be anyway. But their recommendation was halfway house for 6 months. Well, Matthew Barrett pipes up and he says, we don't have any beds. There's no beds at the halfway house, so she has to go to prison. Well, I've been watching the docket ever since, and I've been studying this, and it usually is when someone's sent to prison, once they get their sentencing, then the court applies at the prison or lets them know we need a bed, and there's kind of a little bit of a waiting period. I literally went at 3:00 in the morning. They got me out of here before I could say a word. They got me out of Glenwood Springs that fast. So it's considered diversion. Applying for the halfway house was the first time I applied for the halfway house was upon diversion, which is in the courtroom. So I applied at Rifle basically, and I'm denied because there's no beds. So I get to prison, and at the first 6 months, I'm allowed to apply again. So
But you're appealing your case at this point.
I am definitely appealing my case, but the appeal has not started. That took quite a while for the actual appeal to get through.
Pound of flesh, by the way. That's the pound of flesh that you get.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the middle of it.
I get to prison, and the first thing after 6 months, I apply for the halfway house, and I'm denied. Then I remember getting a letter that they had a restitution hearing without me, and I have to pay full restitution, which I should have been invited to that hearing, by the way. So that's an issue right now. They had a hearing without me, and just decided on numbers themselves. So that was amazing. So I apply at the halfway house in Rifle, and I get denied. I apply again, and I get denied. I believe it was closer to 5 times that I had applied in Rifle and had been denied each time. So my husband decides he's going to go see Rodney Hollingsworth, who is the main guy at the halfway house at the time, who's now deceased. And he sits down with Rodney. He says, I just want to know why my wife can't come here after she has been here all her life. She's paid taxes here. She's got a family here. She's got property here. How come she can't come to the halfway house? And remember these words, because this comes back full circle. He says, because she won't give a guilty plea. And then he walked over to his printer and he printed out my mugshot and handed it to him. And he said, oh, did you want a picture of your wife?
Wow.
Finally,
All right. So the bottom line is that now you're fighting it.
Yes.
So you're in court, you're fighting it, and Barrett takes a special interest in you across the entire process.
Yeah. Not yet, though.
Okay.
Gotta wait a minute here. So finally, I get an invite that I've been approved at the Craig, Colorado halfway house, which I've never applied for.
Okay.
Well, Craig, Colorado is where Matthew Barrett got his start. Matthew Barrett first became a DA in Craig. His
Okay.
stomping grounds, his friends. I didn't know that. Think twice about it. So you go to this halfway house and it's co-ed. No locks on the doors. Literally the creepiest thing I've ever done. And I get there and I'm immediately treated different than all the other residents. There was a good friend. I made a good friend there, a couple good friends there, one named Nacho and one named Joe. Joe's deceased now, but Nacho and Joe had always noticed, dang, Mrs. Pressler, you're getting treated differently. This is really important, Joe. You're getting treated extremely differently. We can't figure out why the parole liaison, Rihanna Adams, keeps calling you into the office and saying, I need a guilty plea.
And that's the prison plea offer, right?
The same as the prison plea that I haven't got to yet.
Okay, sorry.
It's the same as that. So yeah, so she keeps calling me and asking for this plea.
But you already got found guilty, so why are they giving you?
Well, and that's what I
guilty?
said. I said, Rihanna, my plan here, I forget what it's called. The
Because
halfway house plan.
They knew you were appealing it.
Yeah. The halfway house plan clearly shows that I'm only here for 8 weeks. So I've got not only am I only here for 8 weeks, but I also have a parole bond hearing coming up. Why would I tell you I'm guilty if I'm not? She would literally grit her teeth. You make me so mad. You need to tell me you're guilty. So I had the parole bond hearing coming up, but I also had a parole hearing.
Why did they take such a special interest in you over such a, I think I know why.
They told me in the prison system that my case was high profile. There was nothing high profile of my case except for Matthew Barrett, and the courts made sure I was headlined 17 times. I was literally told everywhere I went, you're high profile, you're getting the worst punishment, and including at the halfway house. This is a high profile case, and you're acting entitled. I was entitled the whole time. I was so entitled that they didn't like my clothes and they made me give up my clothes that my family brought that were approved. And I had to wear clothes out of it was called their bat house that the people that had done meth left. They stripped me of my clothing, put me in clothing that didn't belong to me, and they made me walk around town and apply for jobs while they followed me. And I had to tell the people, I wrote checks that didn't belong to me. I stole money. I did this. Can I have a job? And they made sure I said that. So anyway, Rihanna trying to get this guilty plea out of me didn't work, and she hated me. She turns around, brings me into my parole board hearing on the phone. Well, the night before that, I had slipped and fallen at work, and I had a concussion, and I was in the hospital. They bring me home, and I'm literally throwing up every time I stand up. And I had asked her, could I please postpone this hearing, even though I've been waiting all my life for this? I can't do it without vomiting. And she said no. She put me in front of a telephone, a landline, and she turned the phone down when it was my turn to speak. John Odell gets on the phone and he says, hey, Mrs. Pressler, I heard that your plan is to leave your victim high and dry. I heard that you're almost going home and you're going to leave your victim high and dry because you won't give me a guilty plea.
Why would you need a guilty plea if you're already found guilty?
And I said, sir, that's just not the truth. And I said, I'm not guilty. But I have a civil judgment over my head that's never going to go away. So it's not like I'm leaving anybody high and dry. And he said, good. How does another year sound? Shortly thereafter, Rihanna called me in the office and told me to cuff up. I was going back to prison. I said, what are my new charges? And she said, I don't like you.
Okay. So, this sounds really familiar to what we've seen inside of our for-profit prison system.
Yeah.
And they especially pick on people who don't belong there, who don't fit in, and who act as if that's the case because it's true. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a drug addict. You're not someone with an extensive or any criminal history. None.
No.
And you're
Do you have
there.
any criminal history?
No.
Right?
No.
That's important to keep in mind. Like, you've gone your whole life, not a single crime, and all of a sudden now you're the worst criminal ever, apparently.
I am Garfield County's newest Al Capone.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I go to the Craig jail, I think for 3 months, possibly 4. I had my parole bond hearing, but my attorney didn't know I had one until Rodney reminded her. This is important to listen to this. I'm on the phone with the judge, and they're talking about me like I'm not on the phone, of course. And I say, I need to talk. And they say, no, we're just going to finish talking. And Matthew Barrett says, let's not give her this bond because you know what? I have heard that she's been a model prisoner and she's going to make parole. Just remember this. Denise Lynch says, okay, we're not going to award bond because you're not going to win your appeal anyway.
You're not going to win your appeal.
I'm not going to win my appeal.
You win your appeal.
I did win my appeal. But anyway, so.
You won your appeal.
I did. I won a partial appeal. The theft was all dropped.
Okay, so the theft was dropped, which means it was remanded back?
Yeah, and they didn't take me back because they couldn't because what is there? There's no proof. They didn't take me to a new trial.
So they didn't take you to a new trial for the theft.
Correct.
But they kept the forgery on.
No, that was dropped.
That was dropped because it was converted to theft.
Because yeah. So they left.
What was left?
What they left was state charges. I didn't pay taxes on the money that was charged to Rod's credit card. Not mine. Not mine.
Hold on a second. So you have Rod's credit card. You can start to see where this is like soup salad.
Yeah.
Like everyone, chaos favors the op, doesn't favor the people. And in this case, they were hell-bent on making sure that you didn't have your story told, period.
Correct. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because they committed a crime against you. These people conspired. This is organized crime. I mean, this is a judge, a DA, and a child molester by everyone's.
An alleged child molester until there's a conviction, we have to say. But I mean, it seems like the evidence seems
you're going to see some stuff. Yeah. So you're going to see some stuff later that is going to blow your mind.
So I don't get the appeal bond. And I eventually make my way back to the prison. Well, I get to the prison and I get a notice that I need to go see my case manager. But the notice says, this is not your first. Oh, I forget the word, that this is not your official meeting. This is not an official meeting. I just need to see you. So I go in and this lady says, Erin, I've got to show you something. Can you come in and close the door behind you? Well,
look, I'm tired listening because it's fatiguing. It's fatiguing to hear all this.
Right.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going because
I'll make it fast. She said, I have to show you something and I could lose my job for this, but I'm going to show you this. Okay.
Okay.
She turns the monitor towards me, and it's the crons. It's called the chronologicals. It's the conversations between the prison, the courts, and the halfway house.
Okay.
Brianna Adams and Matthew Barrett talking about what a liar I am, talking about sending me back to prison. He tells her, don't let her fool you. She does not have an appeal, and if she tells you she's got an appeal, she's lying. That's what he told the parole board too. It was all there.
But you had an appeal.
I had an appeal. Of course, I had an appeal.
Did you have a prison plea offer?
I did.
You sent that back.
Shortly thereafter, I got an interesting offer in the mail. If they could pull that up.
This is the prison plea offer, November of 2017. And by the way, this would have sent you home immediately.
This could have sent me home immediately. There's a little problem with it, though. Sherry Colea's name is on the letterhead, and she's no longer DA.
Okay, so just put it up, please. Can you put up the prison plea offer?
And there's a lot of documents. So
that's okay.
This is a lot of documents, yeah.
So we start with the top. Sherry Colea is no longer DA.
So it says at the top, 9th District Sherry Colea. She's not the DA any longer. Defense counsel Owens Simpton. This sets out the offer made by the district attorney's office to the defendant. The offer will expire if not accepted by the defense by December 4th, 2017. This was given to you in November of 2017. Defendant acknowledges and affirms jury verdict from trial. Defendant waives right to appeal her trial, including but not limited to CAR 3, and otherwise abandons her appeals of trial. In other words, telling you have to abandon your trial.
Correct. And pay full restitution.
Convictions and other matters set forth. People agree that defendant's sentence is to be converted to probation for 3 years. Other terms open. Restitution must be agreed to, and the people agree that it may not be duplicative of civil judgments. Okay.
So you go from parole to probation, which is supposed to be a really good deal. But you look at the top also by case number. That's not even my case number. So when you're in prison and you have a lot of time to think, which believe me, you do, you sit there and you look at something like that and you think, my God, this is a trick. Does Jeff Cheney, who is now the DA, even know about this offer? I don't think so.
Who put this out?
Matthew Barrett. It's
Look at
signed-
the very bottom, everyone. November 20th, 2017. District Attorney Matthew D. Barrett, Chief Deputy District Attorney. This is on letterhead for Kalia, who is not the DA. So this is a fraudulent document. If you're listening, President Trump, or someone from the DOJ, you have a crime that's committed by the Chief Deputy District Attorney right here. A fraudulent plea deal on a case that is not, I'm sure the appellant case number is correct, right?
Appellate's correct.
Okay, but the case number is not correct.
Correct.
All right. And it was put on a, you're going to waive your right to a 35B. By the way, here's what people don't know about Barrett. Barrett was also found turned over on appeal on a sex crime where he basically, in a civil trial, denied them the ability to have a what's it called? Defense.
Defense.
And to the benefit of the person that was a deviant. That happened.
Yeah, I believe it.
As the judge, he was overturned on appeal. Okay, so you have the prison plea offer, then you have a statement of account activity. What is that?
I apologize. So I'm sorry. I mean the
statement of account activity. That was in November of 2017.
Statement of account activity. Okay, that's a little bit out of order. But
Okay, keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So I get this letter and I don't, it's a trick. I don't understand it. I don't know what to do with it. I mail it home and my husband doesn't get it. I had a prison guard who was a very, very, very nice man. So he made copies of it. I think I mailed it home 2 or 3 times and it never made it to the house. So that letter actually came home in my bra. Not that exact one, but that's how that letter got back. So
You think they were stopping the letter from going through?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me how Barrett got back involved in this deal, because there's other things like shakedown list.
Yeah, here we go. And so I eventually get out of prison, and I get out, a little over 2.5 years later, and I get home, and it took me a couple years to get my wits back to myself, and I decide one day, you know what, I'm going to go see this Rodney Hollingsworth, this pussgut, and find out why he denied me coming back to Rifle, because I don't understand any of this. So I call and I make the appointment and I get down there and I'm just mad as all heck. And I've got Rodney with me and I sit down and I look at this Rick Harder, who is now the head guy there. And I say, Rick, where is that pussgut anyway? And he says, well, he's in the nursing home. He's dying. I said, good. Are you going to tell him that I was here? It's like, well, I don't know. And I said, yeah, I think you should. And I said, I'm really upset. I think I said a few choice words. And I said, I want to know why I couldn't come here. And he was like, oh, I remember your case specifically. He's like, let's pull this up, Erin, and let's find out why you couldn't come here. Well, guess what, guys? I'm not in their computer record as ever applying.
Okay, I mean, so that.
Okay, so can we pull up the letter from Steve Reynolds to DA Jeff Cheney, please? This is actually a big deal. When you're a ward of the state, they better know where you're applying, where you're going, and what you're trying to do. My applications to the Rifle Halfway House.
So where? Okay. Where is that part of the statement of account or shakedown? Okay, there it is.
There we go.
All
Just
right.
go ahead and read that.
So this is in 2023.
Correct. This is not too long ago.
Okay, so Jeff, this is Steve Reynolds. I'm writing in my capacity as a member of the 9th Judicial District Community Corrections Board and as the president of the Colorado Association of Community Corrections, as well as concerned citizen of Garfield County. The matter that I'm interested in seeing investigated is the circumstances around a case from several years ago regarding Erin Pressler. During part of that time, I was acting as the chairman of the 9th Judicial Community Corrections Board, and while I don't believe that there were any breaks of protocol on the part of a board, some of the allegations do include some irregularities around the record keeping of the community corrections program. Specifically, Ms. Pressler was screened several times by our board, and now, according to her attorney, There's no record of her ever being screened by our board, which is very concerning to me. When I first heard of her allegations, I visited with a colleague that works for the Attorney General's office, and they informed me that this would be a situation that would fall under your office's jurisdiction to investigate more than theirs. They also indicated that generally, go up a little bit, please. Also, generally, she would file a lawsuit and attorneys would direct the case. I'm not sure how much you are aware of the details of her allegations, but in my opinion, if any of them are accurate, the situation should be uncovered and prevented from happening again. If you would like to discuss the details, I'm happy to meet with you and let you know what I have heard. I'm not acting on behalf, but as a concerned citizen and a member of part of the judicial system. Thanks for your consideration, Steve Reynolds. He seems like a good guy.
Oh, Steve is wonderful because he's calling out his own. He is standing up and calling out his own.
What is he saying that your allegations were? What are those?
He is saying that he was aware as well that the commonality across this board is everywhere Barrett went, including in the halfway house board meetings, was we got to get a guilty plea out of Erin.
So Matthew Barrett was playing CYA.
Yeah.
As a district attorney, a deputy district attorney.
He was on the board, and we believe that
Matthew Barrett was on the board.
He was. And we believe
the Community Corrections Board.
Yes.
And he gets rewarded for this by moving up eventually.
To a judge.
He
Right.
sure does. And that, yeah. And so we believe, and Steve is on my side on this, that Matthew Barrett had something to do with blocking my applications.
All right, everyone, if you actually are watching this right now, I want you to just tag the POTUS, tag the DOJ on your post, hit a share and share it to say, hey, look, you probably should watch this. You have a file. You have a case file on this.
Yes.
Okay. Matthew Barrett, the judge that put Tina Peters, that denied her a defense completely, that said that she does not have a right by either the pen, the sword, or by speaking. She does not have a right to speak out against the election system. But see, Matthew Barrett and Preble has a massive history of really bad things. He has a good reputation. No, he doesn't. But beyond that, you have people in 2023 that were coming to your defense. What happened with that? Let's just go back to that, because the DOJ should get in the middle of this, because this is a criminal enterprise inside of a smallish county.
Right.
And you spent 2.5 years in prison.
He did.
Okay. And one of the theft charge was overturned.
Correct.
And the other one was not.
And the other one was what?
The other charge was not.
The other charge is.
Charges were not.
Yeah. So you got breaking and entering. I was given a key, but I got breaking and entering. I got a computer charge for deleting QuickBooks, but there was no forensics done on the computer. I did not do that. And I got a state charge for not paying taxes on the money on somebody else's credit card, which would be my husband's. I have those charges. Oh, and Social Security fraud.
For because you're not supposed to, you were working.
Because I was not working.
She never got paid.
Yeah.
You never got paid to not work.
Correct.
Fuck's sake. I don't actually know what else to say there. I apologize. Okay, so Matthew Barrett is now the judge in the Tina Peters case.
Correct.
That piece of trash. I don't even need to begin telling you that this is the email that I got yesterday. To whom it may concern, I'm writing to expose a coordinated campaign of property theft, judicial manipulation, and organized legal abuse taking place in Mesa County, Colorado, under a civil case, and I won't say what the case is. This is not just simply a civil dispute. It's a case involving the targeted prosecution of myself, disabled, this is weird, non-owner resident,
Disabled.
That is weird.
Disability.
and my caregiver. It is part of a larger pattern of corruption where attorneys, including Rubenstein, appear to have influenced judges, including Judge Lawrence, and pushed through an unjust and unlawful outcome. This is if this on my computer is any indication of the larger crime that is happening in counties around Colorado, and I didn't ask for this, by the way. I just want to be really clear. I did not ask for what is in front of me right now. It was sent to me because we started talking about Matthew Barrett.
And by the way, if anyone watching knows someone who has had an experience with Matthew Barrett that was bad, has any evidence on him, videos, files, anything that you can send to us,
anything
at all, where can they send it to, Joe?
Apollo, where can we send it?
You can, well, first of all, you can DM me on X.
Info at untamednation.com. If you know of anybody that is a victim of this, if you know anyone that was a victim of Preble, I want to talk to you. If you know anyone that was a victim of the judge in this matter, what's the judge's name?
Matthew Barrett.
No, Judge.
Oh, Judge Denise Lynch.
Denise Lynch. Is she still there?
Yes.
Okay. If you have been mistreated by Miss Lynch, the judge in Garfield
County. Uh-huh.
I want to know. If you've been abused by Matthew Barrett and you're in jail, you have a family member that's in jail, and you had to go through the same thing that Tina Peters, I want to hear from you.
Put up the email on the screen if you can, Apollo.
Info at untamednation.com. Now, there is more to this that we have not discussed, because there is more, right? I mean, there's...
Yes, I could go on for quite a long time.
Give me some more details on, like, you felt as if you didn't feel, you were railroaded.
Absolutely. In my heart, you guys, this started with sexual abuse. And then I'm sent into a prison system to where I'm strip searched every day. I've been spooned in prison. My body didn't matter.
In the co-ed house? Is that where that happened?
Yes. No. In prison. I was,
okay.
Yeah. In the co-ed house, no. I was, the people that ran that were dirty people.
What are you talking about spooned in prison?
So it was a woman, just to clarify. Sorry to
Yes,
be graphic
it was a
about
woman.
Okay.
They get in bed with you. You don't own your body anymore. You're a ward of the state. You are a thing. You are a number. You're not called by your name. I was called by 171729. That was me for 2 years.
And that's why they hated you.
I longed to hear my name. I would love to hear my name, but I was 171729.
Tell me about I'm sorry, I'm just gonna.
It's okay.
Here's what everybody needs to know. Colorado is a for-profit prison system. It's billions of dollars. So putting people in that system, Matthew Barrett benefits from it.
He does.
The Lynch woman, Judge Lynch, benefits from it. The DAs benefit from it. They get paid bonuses on how many people they put in prison.
Can we go even further than that? Something that you didn't mention on your last show, the halfway houses. You cannot own a halfway house. You cannot run a halfway house unless it is backed by attorneys and judges and DAs. They get the profit from those.
Wait, what?
Yeah, look that up.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. You're telling me that the halfway houses benefit judges?
They do.
Lawyers, DAs?
They do. They invest in them. And that's why
Are you sure about that?
I am positive about that. And that's why the judges are so, send them to
what
the
the
halfway
fuck
house.
is wrong with our country? I mean, seriously.
I know.
This is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life.
So when you talk about Tina, and I know that we're all praying that she gets out next week, next month, or very soon, you guys have to realize that if she doesn't, her next step is the halfway house.
Were you spooned in the halfway house or in the prison?
In prison. I had good friends in the halfway house but I was going to say that the guy that ran it, Dale, who recently applied at the rifle one a couple years ago, because the Craig one was shut down for embezzlement, by the way. And there's no records of any of us being there, and all the money that we made, there's no account. It's not even accounted for. They just took it from us. Somebody embezzled it. There's no records of us even being alive there. But no, I was spooned in the prison. And
Why did you just say, get off me? Or is that not
What
an
is-
option?
oh, I did. Oh, I did. I mean, I literally wake up and this lady's on me. Just you scream, you panic, but you're in a shoebox of a room. There's nowhere to run. But you definitely get up and I was called OG when I was there, and the entire time I thought it meant old grandma. And my kids let me know when I got home it was old gangster. But I was really abused when I first got there. I got punched a lot, got my food taken a lot. You learn really fast what you can and can't do and what you shouldn't do. And I just pretended like I was a hostage. And I
You didn't
felt
have to
like,
pretend too much, did you?
yeah. And you got to suck this up, Buttercup, because a lot of people did this in a lot harsher ways with the showers and whatnot. And then you pretend like you're doing this for your family. You're doing this. So one day, what you're doing here is going to make a difference. And I had to always just literally say that. Even though I lost my father while I was there, you know, I had called home and talked to my father in the nursing home. And I said, guess what, Dad? I'm coming home. I can come home. Are you kidding me? I can get out of the nursing home and I can have my bedroom back at your house? Yes, Dad. Now, mind you, he was getting Alzheimer's. And so I never really had conversations with him where I could understand him. Rod was always there to interpret. But I could hear him clearly this day. And he said, well, what do you got to do, honey? I said, I got to sign this letter, Dad. I got to sign this letter saying that I'm guilty. Then you could hear a needle drop, and my father says, no, you need to think out of the box. Honey, my bed here is fine. Last time I heard from my father.
Oh.
Matthew Barrett knew my father was dying at sentencing. When they said they were taking me away, and it was kind of in that newspaper picture, it was cut off, but my dad put his arms out and said, Mommy. He thought he was losing his mother right in front of Matthew Barrett. I didn't say goodbye to my kids that day. I didn't tell them I had court. That the rule in my house was you smile every day and you don't talk about it. They had no idea.
How old are they?
Well, Carter had his 16th birthday while I was gone, and Brooks turned 21 while I was gone.
What are they doing now?
Carter works for a congressman in Washington, D.C. now, and Brooks is a realtor.
And your son that works for that congressman in D.C., he did that because he wanted justice.
Did that because he wanted justice. He literally went to the college professor in Grand Junction and told the story. And the college professor introduced him to the congressman. And the congressman took our family, listened to our story, and said, I got you.
They haven't gotten rid of that piece of shit Barrett yet.
They have not. They have not. And I think Carter.
Dan Rubenstein.
I think
or-
Carter contacted you.
Did. Yeah, and I said, okay, I'll have a conversation. I think that's how we got
Yeah.
connected. I said, just
Yeah.
give your mom my number.
Yep.
So Preble has a history, and I'm not going to say allegedly because now I have several people that have come forward
Okay.
of being a deviant.
And I don't know if I even want to know. I don't know if my stomach could even take what you're going to say.
Matthew Barrett has a history of being a deviant. Matthew Barrett has a history of trying to impose his will on people and hurt people. He has a history of that. Dan Rubenstein, who was the DA in Tina Peters' case, has a history of being a good old boy in the Good Old Boys Club and doing things in order to promote himself. The AG in Colorado, Phil Weiser, has a history of covering up crimes. Jenna Griswold, the Secretary of State, has a history of being probably one of the most dumbest human beings you're ever going to find, but of literally committing unethical crimes. This is the history of these people. Dan Rubenstein had 3 reports in front of him. I played recordings on this show of an investigator from the Colorado Attorney General's office, picking up the phone and calling up Dan Rubenstein, calling up and saying, tell me what I need to know. Calling up, what's that clown's name? The head of the Colorado County Clerk and Recorder's Office, County Clerk and Recorders Association. Sorry. And what is wrong with me? I can see his little Matt Crane. Called him up and said, tell me about these 3 reports that are this thick. How do I debunk it? How do I debunk these reports? You have a conspiracy to commit crimes against Americans and more specifically people in Colorado. You have a criminal enterprise in the state of Colorado that has created a fraternity that has done real harm to the people in this state. Tina Peters, 69 years old, never even had a parking ticket, not even a parking ticket. And she is rotting in prison on a 9-year sentence just so that they could get their pound of flesh on her. And the Colorado Corrections director entered in with Weiser and said, no. She has to stay in jail. She was found guilty and created a narrative that is much like the narrative you're telling, much like the same story, Erin, that you're telling. Tina went through the same thing. And we are supposed to ignore logic and ignore reason. And we're supposed to allow people like Matthew Barrett and Phil Weiser and Jared Polis and Jenna Griswold and Dan Rubenstein and all of these other evil people. We're supposed to let them create a for-profit prison environment where they can steal the rights and the freedoms of people in Colorado because they said so. And we're supposed to just watch it happen. Well, here's what I think happened. I think Pribble had something on Matthew Barrett. I think Pribble went to Matthew Barrett. This is what I think happened. I think Pribble went to Matthew Barrett and said, you better prosecute Erin Pressler. Because if you don't, I have information on you, Mr. Deviant. And I know I'm a deviant, meaning Pribble. But you better do everything you can to keep her in jail. And so Matthew Barrett did that, including showing up at your house, Erin.
Yeah.
And threatening your husband. I'm going to take your children. People will do a lot of things to protect their children. And it started with a deviant wanting to rape Erin inside of his building. But they got their pound of flesh 2.5 years of her life. And in 2023, she's still fighting. Erin is still fighting. She's literally out there trying to uncover every rock. Her son has changed the trajectory of his life to go work for a congressman so that he could hold these people accountable for stealing that 3 years of his life. And that piece of shit puts on a black robe and walks around as if what he's doing is some sort of service to his community. No, he's a deviant. And the more we turn over rocks, the worse it gets for Matthew Barrett. The worse it gets for Phil Weiser. The worse it gets for Jared Polis, who has not yet pardoned Tina Peters. Because that deviant gay dude, and they're always gay for some reason.
They are always gay. That's a fact.
Right? They're always gay. It's always the gay guys or the deviant women or the dumber than rocks like Letitia James that do real harm to hurt Americans and weaponize the system in order to steal the rights and to steal the voice of the people in this country. But it's not over for Erin. Because now Preble is still in that civil suit. He's trying to take their home. He's trying to take their retirement. That piece of shit is still using the judiciary And Matthew Barrett got promoted to a judge to destroy Tina Peters' life and to create a narrative and to hide behind that same deviant narrative while walking past all of the facts. The facts of the case, the fact that they steal elections, the facts of the case that Erin's like, hey, I got it overturned. She can't get her time back. She's still fighting. See, they cut the tongue out of the people that are telling the truth. They don't cut the tongue out of the people that are lying. And that's what they've done to Erin. That's what they're doing to Tina Peters. And that's what they continue to do to other people like this woman that sent me this response.
You know, I think we skipped over something kind of important. During my trial, Matthew Barrett lied to the jury, said I took lavish vacations to Cancun.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about it. Yes.
He did. And he said that I bought a new home.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I got a loan for that house. I didn't put $1 down on that house, and nor have I ever made a double payment monthly. I got a loan.
Did you ever go to Mexico?
I've never owned a passport. I've never been.
So how'd you get to Mexico?
I wished I knew, and I wished I would have had a lot of fun, but I didn't go.
Teleportation? Is that, do you by any chance know how to teleport?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
That was, and if someone would research Jim's past, he's a snorkeler, and that was a place he used to frequent. We got copies of the credit card statement that he was talking about. Matthew Barrett held it up during the trial. It was my husband's credit card. There were 5 tickets purchased to Cancun. The very next day, there was 5 tickets reimbursed. Who has 5 people in their family? Jim Pribble. Who has 4 people in their family? Erin Pressler. Who has a passport? Jim Pribble and his family. Who's been to Cancun a bunch? Jim Pribble and his family.
What happened to Tony Pagney?
So Tony Pagney,
you guys can go look this up if you want.
he decided to get really drunk like his usual self. And this time he didn't beat up his wife like he usually does. But this time he took his gun to his neighbor and muzzle thumped his neighbor in the chest and accused his neighbor of beating up his wife, making some claim that his wife was being held hostage in the house, something to that effect.
So this is Tony Pagney was booked on felony charges over the weekend related to a disturbance involving a longtime neighbor. Whom was this?
This is this scary man that is a soldier of fortune, every single piece of ammunition you can find in his house. This is why I didn't want to tell on Tony. He's a dangerous man. But
He's a police chief.
he was the police chief. He did get fired. And Jeff Cheney, he's no longer DA as of January. Jeff Cheney let him go on post-traumatic stress disorder.
Hold on a second. This is the guy, just so you know, I mean, you want to know, I mean, Matt, she beats the theft deal, didn't go to Cancun. They used all that evidence and said that she went to Mexico. I mean, there is more to this, by the way. There's so much more that we could do this for 5 hours, and you would have the more you'd get into it as you dripped the drip of all the stuff that Matthew Barrett did in this case, it would be disgusting. I mean, it's enough that good people inside the correction system are going, something's massively wrong here.
Yeah.
Like these are crimes committed.
Yes.
So the DOJ, you need to look into it. You need to lift up the thing, and you need to go in and you need to take care of Matthew Barrett. Start there. Start with a federal investigation into the conspiracy committed by these people. But Tony Pagney pistol whipped a guy.
And they let him off on post-traumatic stress disorder because...
Did he go to prison at all?
No, he didn't do a day in jail. Well, he did a few hours the first night. He was the first person in Garfield County, mind you, to get out of jail on a weekend. Tina Peters couldn't. That's why she went to jail in Aspen. Because in Garfield County, you don't get out of jail on a weekend. But Tony Pagney got to get out of jail on a weekend.
Hold on a second. He was using a weapon.
Uh-huh.
He was heavily intoxicated.
Correct.
He put a weapon that was loaded against the chest of his neighbor.
Correct.
He harassed, struck, kicked, basically beat the guy from all intents and purposes.
And this is why I didn't want to tell on him for giving me a key. Could
Go
you
ahead,
understand
go ahead
why?
and put this mugshot up. So really, it's in that picture. It should be right below.
This is this man used to beat up his wife, and so Sarah Pagney, she was afraid of Jim Pribble, and she was afraid of her husband both. So
Where is
she
she
lied
now?
for both of them. They're divorced. They're divorced, and she's still living in Newcastle, but they're divorced.
I'm going
thank
to go
God.
say hi to her.
Yeah, please do.
And you can see, by the way, the alcohol in his face. You can tell that's a man who drinks regularly and heavily. You can look at him
still
and know
does, and he hasn't stopped.
Post-traumatic stress.
And here's where the post-traumatic stress disorder came from. They said, I can't recall the year, but I knew him during this. There was a shooting at City Market in Rifle years ago, and he can't get that shooting out of his mind. But see, the thing is we were at his house when he got the call, and he was excited. He loves weapons. It made his day. But he says that he never got over that, and it caused him to get drunk 10, 12 years later.
All right, so let me read. Can I read this real
Please
quick?
do.
Go down a little. I mean, up a little bit. Sorry, Paul. Okay, when Pagny's neighbor responded to deputies that he was on the porch when Pagny approached him while carrying a long gun. The neighbor said that he lived next door to each other for 19 years, described Pagny as a good neighbor. When Pagny approached the neighbor's home, he was calling for his dog, which prompted the neighbor to ask if the dog was okay. The neighbor said Pagny then came on his porch and said he smelled like whiskey on his breath. He also noted that Pagny was stumbling like he was drunk. Pagny asked the neighbor where his wife was, and the neighbor said she was out walking the dog. Pagny then accused him of lying and told him he needed to open the door to his home. The affidavit says Pagny threatened to strike the neighbor with the muzzle of his rifle if he did not comply. The neighbor refused to open the door, and Pagny then accused his neighbor of killing his wife and insisted he needed to be let inside to confirm or disprove his suspicions. At that point, the affidavit says Pagny pushed the muzzle of his rifle against his neighbor's chest and pressed into it. The neighbor pushed the weapon away and called his wife. When Pagny saw him on the phone, he retreated to his home and refused to come out. Pagny eventually surrendered peacefully. By the way, this means that they had to...
Okay, so let's say this. Then all the neighbors got a reverse 911 call to stay in their house, close their doors, lock the windows, whatever, and they put down tack strips on the road. But this is a peaceful surrender. This took hours.
Deputy that interviewed Pagny at the jail noted that Pagny stumbled the entire short walk to the jail and said he was a heavy odor of an unknown alcohol beverage. Same deputy said that the time Pagny would fall asleep and then snap awake prompted him to suspect there was another unknown substance in the system other than alcohol. Investigators later found the rifle used in the incident inside Pagny's home with a round in the chamber and a fully loaded magazine. Town Administrator David Reynolds has named Sergeant Chuck Burrows as interim chief according to a release from the town. Okay. Erin, I'm sorry. That's
Don't
all
be
I can
sorry.
say.
You know what? Okay, here's my attitude now.
It's 11 years that you've gone through this.
I'm saddened. The time, and you guys, it's not just the time that I lost with my kids or my father, but we haven't said much about my husband. A rock star. But he wasn't always. Didn't feel like living a lot through this. You know, he was full-time mom, full-time, taking my calls from the prison.
And full-time job as well.
And full-time job. And his days consisted of getting in the truck and going to try to go to work. But I would call. I would call relentlessly over and over. And half of the calls, you got to put more money on the phone calls, Rod. I didn't ask for much commissary. I didn't ask for a TV or anything like that. But it was just more money on the calls. And he would try to have a good day. And then I would literally have him on the side of the road in tears. And then he would call another friend, a good friend, and just pray. But that's what his days were. And my friends, when I got home, said, I didn't think he was going to make it. And then other friends said, I'm sorry I didn't talk to Rod while you were gone, but we didn't know what to say. And that's completely understandable. But in Rod's eyes, it's nobody's talking to me anymore. It's just this whole, I'm so lonely. But being without me for 2.5 years, and when I came home and the kids' friends had written their name in the dust, literally, was the best feeling ever. I had a job to do. I had to clean that house, which took forever. But what I was getting at is, let's not be sorry. Let's be pissed. But let's not be sorry because guess what? I'm alive. And I don't know who out there that had this happen to him by Barrett is not alive or is literally homeless. Because by all account, I should be homeless. I should be in the gutter from what he did to me. I should be divorced. I should have everybody in the valley not liking me. I have more friends than I ever have. I'm very close with my children. And I just celebrated my 32nd anniversary with my husband.
And now you have thousands more people who are on your side and supporting and who are going to help to bring justice.
Amen. Amen. And I have you guys. So Am I sorry? Yeah. I mean, there's stains on my pillowcase from the times I wake up and go, I'll literally text my kids in the middle of the night going, wait, did I miss this milestone in your life? And I get this, yes. But it's okay, Mom. Every time, yes, Mom, but it's okay. The kids used my phone while I was gone. So when Google shares those memories, oh my God, I didn't even know this face. I was not here for this face. That kind of shit, excuse my language, that's the stuff. That's the stuff right there. And then you take Tina Peters, who they strip her from her husband. They
He
strip her
dies.
from her family.
Killed him.
She's not even going to have those to come to the camera. Like her story is so much different. It's just not any better. It's not any worse. It's just disgusting. It's just there's no good out of any of this. But thank God it's Tina. And I know that sounds crazy, but you guys, she's obviously a fighter.
She is.
She's obviously badass. And I'm just going to put it that way. And without her and without me right now, without my family, without you guys, we're not solid. And so we have to be thankful we have the players that we do.
What do you got, Matt?
You know,
Matt has a very big justice meter.
I do. And one thing that makes me more pissed off than anything is to see innocent people with no criminal history, and that's what we see over and over again, getting the book thrown at them for crimes they did not commit because of corrupt judges who want to profit from the system, who want to elevate their careers, who have their own stuff that they're hiding and covering up and don't want to get exposed. And with Tina, she lost her son. That happened relatively recently. She was already going through a lot. And one of the reasons why she had that spirit, had that fight in her to try to expose what was happening with the election is because she was in a very bad state because of that, in part, I believe. And I'll let her speak for herself on that. But she wanted justice. She wanted to do something that was right and have purpose. And for that, they then took everything else. And she has a daughter. She has a grandchild. She has people who love her, people who want to see her, people who she should be with right now. And she's not. And to see and hear your story and to be sitting next to you right now and to listen to what happened and to listen to all of these awful things that you've had to go through and to compare that, and I'm sorry to get a little emotional here, but it does make me want to do things that aren't legal, and I'm not going to do that. But that's the urge that comes up inside you when you hear this, when you see injustice. And it's not injustice that's happening to bad people, it's injustice that's happening to good people, people who want to be there for their families, people who have done good in their communities, who have served and who are loyal to God as well. That's an important factor to keep in mind. People who don't deserve this are getting railroaded over and over. And I would be willing to bet that there are so many more stories around Matthew Barrett, so many more stories of people who have been victimized and hurt unfairly. And not just him. What about all the other judges? Well,
and speaking of, besides Matthew Barrett, you guys are hopefully going to have me back on another show again. We're going to talk about the case of Michael Swope. That's another one I've introduced to your people today, and they could talk to you about that soon. I've got a big one for you that'll knock your socks off.
It's all based on the same.
It's all based on the same thing. And Michael's in prison now, and he needs our help. And when you hear people say, "Oh, I had this bad thing happen to me, so my goal in life is I'm going to help others," and sometimes you hear that and it's cliche, but this is what I have spent my life on. I've opened up a case, I've dug into it, and I've been fighting for this man, and I need your help. And so hopefully I'll be back. I was told today I'll be back.
Absolutely.
And you guys, we're gonna rock that, and his family deserves it, and Michael deserves it, and here we go.
Not only will you be back, but you are welcome to come on anytime you want, any place you want, and tell any story that you have.
I appreciate it. You're gonna have to set up a little room here for me because I won't leave. Yeah, it's just
It is about giving people the voice that they don't have.
I never would have had this voice. I was the person who was not a political figure. I was the layperson. I was the mom. I was nothing. Nobody would listen to me because they read the paper. And it didn't matter. And then I do recall Judge Lynch saying to me one time, "You just need to move on and get over with it. You just need to learn how to deal with it." No, because they never thought I would come back. I always knew I would. I didn't know how, but I always knew I would. I think it might be the Sagittarius in me, but I don't know. I'm back.
That's the thing about picking on fighters, is at some point, it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. And that's what's happening, what's starting right now, but there's a lot left to do. And we will not rest until every single person out there who has unfairly abused the legal system for whatever motivation they have has justice that is forced upon them, has the reverse. That's what we're fighting for. That's what we need to happen, and we will not stop.
Amen.
Erin, thanks for coming in.
No, thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna give you the last word, and then Matt, you want to pray us out?
I do.
All right. Housekeeping: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. We do go live on Rumble. Make sure that you share it. Give us a thumbs up on the way out. Erin's going to tell us a little bit right now. She gets the last word, and then Matt's going to pray us out. So you guys have a great weekend, and just remember that there is a system that is designed to hurt people, and we've got to break it down. I mean, this is the part where we can't allow people like Matthew Barrett and Phil Weiser and Jenna Griswold and Dan Rubenstein and all these bad people get away with what they got away with. And there's two tiers of justice. You had a guy that literally pistol whipped his neighbor, hid, and nothing happened to him. It's not right. Erin?
I think if there's anything I can add, it's, if you have the chance to talk to somebody after you've read about them in the media, you might make yourself a better person by hearing the actual story than by just reading what's put out there. We live in a world that just loves to hurt people. And it kind of backfired with me because it really made me a lot stronger. But I learned. I think the biggest thing I learned out of this was I'm not the judge and I don't want to be the judge. And I think that's all I have to say, except for I love you guys and I love my family. And I can't be more appreciative.
And the level of bravery to come on and tell the story you did cannot be understated.
Thank you.
And your son is?
My sons. We've talked about the youngest one, Carter, but then you've got this son, Brooks, who's doing real estate in Garfield County. And it just hurts my heart to think that when this airs, that it might make it harder for him in the Valley when people hear this because he's such a professional kiddo. But I don't think it will. I think God's with us. And I
think there's enough history behind Preble.
I do too.
I think people wanted to hear it. Now they're going to come forward. I think you're going to find that.
I can't wait to hear more about that. And I'm just proud. I'm proud of those kids.
Yeah.
Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to have this platform to speak out against evil, to have Erin on to tell her story about her beautiful family who had their entire lives taken from them and twisted around and hurt, and only to come out stronger at the other side. For her sons, who are now going into the world and experiencing careers and living life and doing things that hopefully are even at a higher level now because of what they went through. Now they're stronger. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for all that you do. Allow us to continue to have this voice as we try to do good and we try to help. Amen.
Amen.
Beautiful.
We'll see you guys on Monday. God bless you.
God bless.
God bless.